Good, all right, we're good. All right, let's bring the working session for the Lebanon Utility Service Board for August 19th to order. We have 4 agenda items on our working agenda. The first is Sandra, I'll let you go.
All right, so tonight I have for you the health insurance. And I always like to apologize to everybody because everybody's probably not aware of this, but we get this. This year we got it August the 10th. And they require a decision by September the 4th, which sounds like a pretty good period, but it's one board meeting. So we always have to call an emergency personnel committee meeting and try to get through this. But in summary, this year, our increase and the city of Lebanon, because we are considered really one entity, even though they bill us separate, our increase came to 7.5%. Industry market this year is somewhere in the mid-teens to the low 20s if you're state specific. So we do feel like this 7.5%, while it's maybe a little bit higher than what we've had, is a really good increase. And Tim wanted me to remind everybody where we started. So back in 2017, our renewal came in at $1.2 million. It's been less than that ever since. So we have saved a tremendous amount of money by going with AIM. What we will be asking tonight is not really to continue with AIM because we have to make that decision in April, but what we'll be asking is that we continue with the same plan, which is Plan 7. I think everybody's comfortable with it.
If we wanted to get out, the city would have to agree also, right?
Yeah, if we ever decide to get out, we both have to get out, correct? And we have to do that by April 1st. So we're asking to stay with Plan 7 and then continue to support 85%, employees pay 15%. We want to stay with AIM for the ancillary, and I'll tell you there was no increase in any of the ancillary this year because last year they did at least 2-year agreements with everybody. Our cost will change because our number of employees change, but the premium itself won't change. And then we currently fund the HSA, $4,400 for family and $2,200 for single. And we're asking that that remain the same this year also. They are very good to work with. I'll tell you, we don't have a lot of issues. When we do, they get back with us really quick, so we're pretty happy with them. Not to mention the amount of money that they have saved us.
Do they act as their own claims adjusters, or?
It's like a self-funded plan. So yes, up to a certain point, everything that goes in the plan is what pays back out for the plan, but then they have insurance that if there's any claims over a certain amount, then it would be back funded.
A part of their employment is claims professionals.
They hire firms to help do that.
Okay.
Yeah, but in addition to the savings you see here, I'll just remind everybody, back in 2025, they had an excess, and they returned all that excess back to the municipalities in the form of what was called a holiday premium. So for one whole month, we didn't have to pay our premium, which was $62,000, and the employees saved $11,000 by not having to pay their premium for that month. And they've done that at least twice now.
Basis for that?
They have excess funds and they return it back to, because they base your premiums.
An organization with excess funds return.
Sounds kind of good. They're kind of acting like an insurance company.
Yeah, AIM is kind of the, yeah.
I don't know what
AIM is the
legal boundaries they
intermediary.
have, but it's a
Intermediary.
thing to do. So 7.5 is probably larger than we've seen for a while. I think we had one that was a little higher back a while ago, but I think
24 was 8.1.
yeah. So I think that, going back to 2017, we had 1.2 million then, and I think we're still less than $1 million now in what we're doing. So 9 years later, we're still paying less insurance for our employees' health insurance than we were 9 years ago.
Amazing.
So I think the switch to AIM has helped us, and it has provided us quite a bit of benefit over time.
If you look at 2022, that was a 21% decrease even. So they've been very good for us. So that's what we're asking for today on health insurance.
Questions? Any other?
The employees' coverages,
I have not heard any complaints. I mean, the HSA helps tremendously. It helps cover if anybody has anything up front, but the plan itself is one of the better plans when you come to an HSA. It has just the required deductibles of an HSA. You have some plans that require higher than that. But like I said, if anybody has any claims issue and they go to Amber, Amber can send an email to AIM, and normally it's the same day we get a response back, helping the employees out.
It's up that, right? The
But,
amount,
yeah, it went up just a little bit this
Yeah.
year. I don't have that in front of me, but yes.
3,500 or so.
I think it's, I can look in here, I think it's 3,500 and
What went up?
the deductible.
But that was not our decision.
That was not our
That
decision.
was mandate.
Right.
Andrew, I think you could agree with me and say that most of the employees don't realize how good they have it, and some of our newer employees have come from other places, and our insurance is usually a lot better than where they came from. It was for me. So.
Yeah, on a relative, everything's relative. On a relative basis, we have an outstanding benefits package. I feel like, where I'm at in life and in my previous employer, I had outstanding benefits, and ours are a bit better on the health side.
I've heard our manager say that our programs that we offer to prospective employees help them with the hiring. Is that still the case?
We have very good
Is that
benefits,
still
yes.
the case?
It's
on that
it's
record?
always,
Yes.
it's always
Speaking
brought
as-
up during interviews.
Speaking as one of the
Everyone
newest
knows.
employees, it's pretty good. I mean, coming from the place I came from, we had really good health insurance too, and this is better, so.
Say, Ryan, is the health insurance still helpful when we hire new folks? Okay.
And the deductibles are 3,500 and 7,000, which is the required from the IRS, I believe.
All right. Power outage update. We've had some power outages since our last meeting?
Had a few.
Oh, was there weather?
We have had some significant weather issues, although we've fared really well compared to neighboring communities. No flooding, power outages, more than days. I have a friend that lives up by Chicago, and they just got power back. Done really well, but we have had a significant amount of outages. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did write down the large ones. In the last 3 months, we've had high winds, tree branches coming down a primary. We've had private contractors hitting our lines 3 separate times, that causing outages. We've had 2 lightning strikes. We've had a vehicle accident that caused a significant outage. And we had an entire tree take down a circuit. So,
All right, no squirrels?
squirrels, I didn't.
happened earlier this
I-
week,
I
I
didn't,
saw.
I didn't include the small outages. These are the large outages, yeah. These affected more than 500 customers, every one of these. We have a plan in place that we're going to be presenting during the budget season for next year, tree trimming, just because even though we've done a significant amount of trees, the growth substantial. We have to get in backyards. One tree trimming might take our guy one whole day just to do one backyard now. Just because getting access, getting a vehicle in, repairing the damage to the yard, if we had to drive through it, pulling mats. And so now we're at these parts of town where we almost need to look at a separate contractor for these smaller jobs. So instead of having a large contractor that is focusing on our primary, we need someone to focus on our secondary. So it's something that we're looking at. Sam has been getting some prices on some other contractors. We'll look at it during budget time and see where we're at.
Are you defining secondary as kind of these emergency situations when trees go down or?
No, secondary as in secondary lines going to a person's home.
Like secondary voltage.
Yeah, secondary
Ah,
voltage,
okay,
so
okay,
12240,
okay,
not
okay.
primary
Yeah,
voltage.
okay.
And what we're finding is, and this Phil can speak to it maybe a little later if you guys have questions, but we're finding that our fusing is not correct in town. It should fuse at a home and it goes up from there. But what we're finding is over time, people were out working a storm and whatever fuse they had on the truck is what got put in that fuse. So, for instance, when the squirrel last week, it blew a 50 amp fuse, and then the next one in line was a 30 amp fuse, and then the next one was a 50 again. So it should have stopped at the second one if it was a 50, but that fuse got replaced 4 years ago during an outage, and nobody ever went back to fix it. So Phil's looking at doing a study for us to actually look at this fusing to see where we need to make some changes at. And I think that'll significantly improve where these outages are stopping. So if something happens on one side of the town, it doesn't reach the other side of town before it stops. So we're gonna look at that also.
Is that a training issue or a supplying issue?
It's simply, it's simply an emergency issue. They put it in, when it's storming out, you get people back in power, we triage, if you will, with whatever we have on the trucks is what we use. We should be going back and fixing these at the end of it. The problem is to fix stuff like that, you have to take people back out of power, and nobody ever wants to do that. So,
It's an urgency issue.
yep, yeah. Maybe not. Maybe we'll pull the money.
Potentially on the tree
Yeah.
trimming, I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
potentially on the tree trimming.
Maybe we'll use some of the
We'll talk.
funding that we haven't used. But, so we have had a significant amount, and I have fielded a few emails and phone calls from citizens that were concerned about the outages. And we always reassure, it has nothing to do with LEAP, nothing to do with Meta. And these are accidents that some possibly could be prevented by tree trimming, but other related incidents, we really don't have any control of. Those lightning strikes that took out our entire sub, basically.
A gust of over 100-mile-an-hour wind
Yeah,
in that last outage.
some of that is just not preventable,
You
unfortunately.
can look around and see the outages around like Duke and AES and everyone else in the area.
Yeah.
We're faring better than them.
My sister works for NIPSCO, and she sent me a text late last week that said they had 1,200 people out, and they were calling everybody around that they could to try to help get people in northwestern. It's fairly hopeless for a while.
Yeah, like I said, I have a friend that lives up there, and it was a week. It was 6 days. And we talk about that, and it's a real possibility here, but we've been so fortunate that I don't know of any outages that have lasted longer than 20. So our crews do an amazing job, and I think coordination has been just top-notch here. I will say one thing to push into the circuit that keeps going out is so stretched out. We have people from the south end of town to the north on the same circuit. When we are able to get that new substation, we will divide those out. We will pull some of those customers on the south side of town to the south substation. A closer area is easier to maintain than one that's stretched out. Questions about outages?
So you'd have fewer people out.
Fewer
when the
people
outage
out
happened,
when the
and
outage
you'd be able to
happened, yeah.
Identify it sooner, so it'd be
Yeah.
a smaller area.
And I think some of the vision of our predecessors for the loop around the city helps us tremendously also when it comes to outages.
Definitely.
Had we not had that, 20 hours might be the minimum time in some circumstances.
Typically has decreased the number of
We cannot
outages.
overlook our municipal utility, the fact that we have neighbors serving neighbors.
Providing us constant supply of power is, because that can happen too.
And it has.
Yeah, it can
It
happen
has,
too.
yeah.
So, all right, well, hopefully some of the weather's through us by now.
Let's hope it stops raining for a couple weeks. We have a lot of projects that are dependent on dry weather.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, in the regular meeting. Okay, any other related to power? All right, David and Sam, our change order on the agenda later? Yes, yeah?
So, yeah.
Yes, we do have one.
So with outages and everything else, growth, Phil, we've utilized him a lot more, especially in planning for future jobs, current jobs, and just repairs along the way. And Phil sat down with Sandra and I. We all went through the contract, and we figured out how much he's already used and how much we have left. And one of the things that we've noticed is that there's not enough money in there for how we're utilizing him today. He's here 1 day a week, and we could honestly have someone here 3 or 4 days a week. And that's one of the reasons why we added that in to the rate, is to actually get in. Someone not only looking at our future growth, but how can we fix this stuff that we have now? And one of the things is just time. We just need someone that's here more often. With this change order, Phil was going to increase the number of hours he was here, so he could increase the number of projects.
So that's the number of hours that he's here or somebody on
Or
his
some,
team.
or someone on his team.
So
Phil-
we have such a good relationship with him as an individual.
Yes.
Relationship with other,
We've worked with multiple of his team members, never in person, always email, on the phone. We've done a meeting of different engineers on his team, but Sam also knows them from his time at IMPA.
they like him?
You know,
So the person that we have picked, I did beat him in fantasy football last year, so he might not be too happy, but
But we do anticipate a continued good relationship with the individuals.
Stable of good people. I'm up there about once a month normally when I'm traveling more easily to their commissioner meetings, and they have plenty of engineers, some of whom are less price per hour than Phil, and could do the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, so the guy that they're looking at potentially adding for a second day, so Phil would be here 1 day, and then they would potentially add either Phil or this other engineer for the second day. He was a distribution engineer for NIPSCO, came to work at IMPA, lives in Carmel, so he's the closest guy to us.
close enough to drive here.
So it is a guy who's been out in the field before, which is kind of really what we need out of that as well. So, and like Ed mentioned, he's a little bit cheaper than Phil, so it helps us on that end too.
And then one other thing that I would just want to throw out there, we are billing these developers for engineering fees. Some of this cost that that we have, we've billed for. We've billed $28,000 this year for engineering fees. So asking to increase Phil's, but we've already recouped half of what we've increased just by billing these customers.
You back that up, Sandra?
Yeah.
Although I like the idea of hiring a full-time electrical engineer, a lot of our costs are driven by development. So if development were to hit 2013 levels, we would need them less time a week, and
Yeah.
it would just balance out, so.
No, I think this is Phil's maybe third year with us, at least his second, maybe his third, but I think it took us a little while to warm up and get the idea going, and now we can't get enough of Phil, which leads to, at a couple $100,000, we're at the point of that can support a full-time equivalent for a power distribution engineer that could go, and with our growth right now, I don't think we would have any trouble keeping a person busy for years on end.
And that I spoke with, we've had lunch with Mike Adams, and they know we're looking for a full-time engineer, and they're willing to just be support also. So even after this, we're not gonna get rid of, IMPA. We're still gonna call them on these large jobs, but some of the smaller stuff could be taken over, and so you may see the change where we're not spending as much with them and on in-house. So, I look at the future as we'll have a full-time person here on our payroll, and then we'll use ISC as needed.
That's retraining, we get more
Yeah.
junior person.
Well, I think it'll be similar to before we had Phil, how we used ISC.
Yeah.
Longer term, I think it will be very similar to that, so. Okay. Well done. This is resolution recommending to the Common Council the adoption of a new schedule of rates and charges for the municipal electric utility of the city of Lebanon in Baker Tilly Cost and Service Study. Now, that is a title.
Before we dive into it, I just want to say kudos to Jeff, to Sandra, to David, to Sam, our whole team, because I've been putting a lot of pressure on them to get it on this week's agenda so we keep this thing moving and moving forward. So if there was something not quite right that we uploaded on Friday, my fault for pushing them. I knew that they said, well, we won't be ready. I was like, well, pedal faster, be ready. And so I think we've got everything right now, but with that,
Yeah, I think kudos is in line, and I think, you know, the point Sandra kind of made to me is we do want to make it before October and get it through the city, and we've got obviously 2 city council meetings for that too, so, you know, we're close. We may have some ultimate detail to clean up here, but we're close.
Yeah, so thank you for the indulgence of the last-minute changes, even up through today. The resolution itself is fairly simple in that it's jumping through and in some working sessions and in a joint session with the city council. I know there's been some updates to that that hit mid-last week. Relative to the ordinance itself, which is really capturing the results of the Baker-Tilly study. The ordinance from a nuts and bolts classifications inserted, or the different rates, I think captures what has been discussed. You know, we're moving away from that more of a conservation to flat rating. We have updated we've added a electric vehicle rate. We have enhanced our net conceptual discussions of what our net metering does along with that. That concept there, IMPA is really moving away from it with some target date where they would not support it. A number of years ago to continue to support net metering, not encouraging, but also not discouraging, and allowing new users to step on the system. We still have our cap in place. But again, we have increased and made a little more robust. Non-recurring rates and charges have remained the same, and all our amendment, we have our rate schedule selection that keeps users from taking it. Small power, that remains, and then our in. That's just the structure of it. I think perhaps the easiest is either to turn into any questions you have in the report, or to look at each rate classification and discuss those. Thank you. Anything you would add?
Oh, the only thing I would add is the biggest change, I think, from the initial report that we put out was David had noticed that there was no customer charge with the EV, and we really felt like there should be a customer charge, so we added in a customer charge just like every other rate class has to the EV rate. Other than that, I believe it was just very minor changes, and then we did make a big change. I don't know if you hit that when you were talking.
I did not. Go ahead.
So currently on green power, all the way back from when we first started billing it, we billed 0.01 per kilowatt if you opted into the green power rate. IMPA, a couple of years in, changed their rate. We did not know that they changed their rate, so we continued to bill the penny. So we were kind of over collecting, and I think we've brought this to the board before. As long as we're taking that money, putting it back towards our purchase power bill, we're okay, and we're not violating anything because our ordinance does say 0.01. What we wanted to do is I don't want to over-collect it and document every month that I'm paying it back to IMPA, is just tie it directly to the IMPA rate. So every year when the IMPA rate, I believe the way Jeff has it worded is it's just directly tied to that rate. If the IMPA rate changes, we change our green power rate.
quarterly update that would be on there?
No, this would be.
No, this would be,
Annual,
yeah,
typically annual.
once a year they change it. I think one time they changed it in the middle of the year. But they are supposed to notify us of that, and keeping it tied directly to that keeps it a lot cleaner for us.
So in summary, we have made it so that the IMPA rate governs a nimble adjustment to our pass-through charge. and we have removed the administrative cost associated with that program.
So it's just a pass.
It is literally just a
And that's
pass-through.
what I'm reading on this
Yeah,
paragraph.
yeah, it's literally just a pass-through. There has been, I think, consistent with our ordinance, an over-collection on that from a and IMPA supported that. I think there's a number of communities that have not made that change, and we felt a fair way to do it.
So, normally, I like to read stuff before I approve it. I have a couple of questions. Are you satisfied with this final proposed ordinance, Sandra?
I've read, I've read 8 versions. I am comfortable with everything I understand. So, the reason I say that is because it gets real technical in some of the metering language and the polyphase and the voltage, but David, I know, has read at least as many times as I have.
Go ahead.
So from everything I've looked at, I've tied back out all the rates to the cost of service. I've tied it back out to our prior ordinance, and I'm comfortable.
David, are you comfortable with this version of the?
Jeff sent it out earlier today, and we went through it again on the phone. I think we've went through everything that we can go through. So
I agree, same thing. We talked the net metering portion of it through again. I'm fully comfortable with.
Oh,
I was on a conference call with Jeff,
So
David,
we
and
all-
Sam earlier.
Yeah.
We all talked it through, and yes, I'm comfortable.
Okay, I've been following this through. I just like to read the final version. I haven't had a chance to, but I am encouraged. A lot of confidence in, or confidence.
I did have a question, though, about the net metering language that's in there. I think it's important that it be very specific, but I thought that section read a lot more, in my mind, like a contract than an ordinance. And so I wasn't 100% sure what the justification was for it, because like I don't know how much we're intending to bind customers by an ordinance rather than inform them that this is the way it's going to be. So I know that there's probably some gray area in there, but if you can kind of
Yeah.
walk through that a little bit.
So this draws from a number of sources. Number one, the net metering comes from our old 2005 ordinance. It also draws from some suggested language that IMPA has published relative to net metering. And net metering is a little bit unique in it is this sort of voluntary program that is very physical, and it's one of the only real touches where a potentially non-sophisticated customer is utilizing and touching our system. And so everything I've read in terms of recommended ordinances and the like have really, and I agree with your analysis, but because of all of that language, what we don't want to do is we don't want to, because we have an interconnection agreement that a customer signs, we always want the more stringent language to be in this ordinance. And so what I don't want to ever happen is an interconnection agreement water down the specifics of what this ordinance sets forth. So that's why you have a very kitchen sink, I will agree, robust element in the ordinance to govern those connection terms.
But are we going to require the net metering customers to sign a contract that mirrors this language as well? Because
Correct.
to me, it seems like that's where the teeth are, is the
We're not
contract.
going to do any more
that
new net metering. We're kind of grandfathering it, right?
That's not correct. So the way the net metering will work is, and just philosophically, there's really three options that we can roll through with this. One, we can say, and the board made a decision, and I think staff agrees, that we don't want to just say no more net metering. Anybody that's on the system is grandfathered in until some date in the future, which is what IMPA is suggested. Some communities,
They're gonna cut it
10
off.
years, it's cut off.
Gotcha.
From a policy standpoint, the board said, you know what, that doesn't feel right. The other is to, another end of the spectrum is to completely embrace it and say, hey, you figure it out with IMPA, you contract with them for anything that over and above that you put back on the system as another methodology of dealing with it. What we've done is said, you know what, that's not, we want to be somewhere in between. We're going to cap a user, each individual user, their product that they connect to the system can only put 10 kW max, can only be rated for that. And then our total consumer net generation mass is only 0.1% of our summer annual peak. So what this allows is that protects us from having, with our power purchase agreement that we have with IMPA, protects us from an overproduction of electric on our system. Meaning we have to purchase X amount of energy from IMPA every year. So what, we have that cap, we have that protection, that because our peak will change and will likely go up each year, that will allow some new users to step on the system. If a new user steps off the system, they can be replaced with another user. So we haven't said no more net metering, which is way IMPA is sort of rolling towards, but you have some users that have been on the system, and we have interconnection agreements that we have done very recently with the school corporation. So we think that's a good practice. We want to make sure that this always trumps those agreements that we have done. So it's I don't know if I'm really answering your question other than talking around it, that.
You are, you're answering my question. I'm trying to wrap my head, around the kind of the policy implications of it, because I'm hearing that IMPA's not going to support it for much longer, in which case we may have to update the ordinance to take this out, but I would have thought that given alternative sources of energy, that net metering might be something that would be in favor. So I'm just kind of trying to work through, this is probably not the forum for that discussion, but I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around, you know, where are we headed with this? So I think this is a good place, marking time in this particular point in time. I think this works, but.
Yeah, we had similar discussions like that earlier on our conference call, and we thought, let's just capture where we are right now, and we can change it later, depending on where things go. Because David will tell you, there's people with solar panels, rooftop solar panels, and they were promised they'd save a lot of money, and a lot of them really didn't.
Yeah.
So what I see, and let me interject before David, I'll turn it over to David and Sam, they know a lot more about this, but from a layman's perspective, there is a lot of small solar, and this is just my opinion. Some of the small solar uses are great. Appreciate that. I don't know in the Midwest, north side of Indianapolis, if the payoff is really there.
It's not Tucson, Arizona. I get it. So
the main teeth of this, we have a power purchase agreement that I believe, with IMPA, that I believe expires in 2030, Ours is 50.
2050.
2050, I thought.
They have some that are going to begin expiring with other communities.
Everybody's on the same deal now. It's 2050 for everyone.
There's a few.
At the time that was written, it was.
Yep,
it was-
that was where the
2035.
2035 came in.
Yeah.
They extended everybody to 2050.
So they could borrow more.
So what IMPA was saying is, hey, go ahead and grandfather any users until 2035, until those power purchase agreements subside. We have some the power purchase agreement dates back to, and it's been a couple years since I've looked at it, 87, maybe 84.
Yeah, I think it's like
And
that time.
has been amended over time, and IMPA has become a bigger thing. And some of the teeth in that agreement are basically saying, we can't be a self-generator to secure those investments that IMPA makes in green power, in other diverse energy sources. And the main element in this is, while they want to encourage it, and they were very hot on that for a period of time, I don't know that they're seeing the payoff, and I think there's probably a lot of problems that they're seeing. Hence, you have this very instructive, specific language to protect our system. We can step in and inspect, we can disconnect you immediately. We're not responsible for any harm that it would cause. In fact, you can only have a 10 kW elements to your system. Not only can you not produce more than that, you can't have something attached that can produce more than that, so that there wouldn't be some change. So what I think they're finding is that there's probably, the juice isn't worth the squeeze
The small ones, yeah.
on, and so, but I think IMPA wants to control that, is the sense that they want to be the ones that guide how that happens into the future. And our power purchase agreement, as a co-op of a power provider, says that they get to do that. We cannot do any self-generation. In fact, there may be a small lighted solar panel on an electric ops building that may be a little outside the scope of our agreement. So, yeah, so I interrupted you, David. Go
No,
ahead.
I think you captured it perfectly. The term net metering just means that we are gonna be buying their power from, or at what they would pay us for it. So we have a few customers that have had it for a long time, and if they generate 1 kilowatt, we pay the same 11. So really, they're not paying for any infrastructure at that point. It's all on us. So the transformers, the wire, and everything never get. That's what those cost. That's how we determine what to charge people. So I think IMPA has seen that, and they're like, there has to be a stop to it. You can't just produce solar at every house, and then the utility company themselves wouldn't be earning enough money to. That was part of why they've changed their tune a little bit. And the other is, when we track this, we send it to them, and they tell us, hey, you can't have any more net metering customers, and they have. Number that we've had, because since it is net metering, some of these people have credits on their bill. Like, they'll go all summer and they'll have a $20 or $30 credit. And then in the wintertime, they don't produce any, and then.
That was my next question, is we don't actually pay these folks for their power. It is a crediting system, so
As
they
in-
accrue a
But if they
credit.
move out, we do write a check,
Okay.
yeah.
So the difficulty is that we have an electric-based infrastructure, non-solar, non-customer-based generation electric system. And the problem is that this is great during the summer, but when it's cloudy, rainy, winter, we still have to maintain and support the infrastructure going to those structures when they aren't generating. And people need to be able to rely on, walk over to the wall and hit the light switch and it come on when there's snow on their solar panels or it's not a windy day. And so that's the juxtaposition in here. We just don't live in an area that is great for that.
I believe some states like Arizona, I think. Because they want you to produce your own, because they can't keep up with demand. So I think they have a higher rate if you don't. And we're the exact opposite here. We're paying people to do it for net metering. So I think this is kind of captures the best of both worlds. We still allow the people that have it. If somebody moves off, we would have a spot open for someone else. But what it does, it stops these large companies from coming in saying, and you guys are gonna pay me 11 cents per kilowatt for it.
Oh, 0.1%.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, good discussion. I think maybe at some future date, you should redo that presentation I had you do with how much, we had the number of people that were on net metering and what. Very instructive.
Just as a public service thing as well, we will get a lot of people, every once in a while, we will get advertisement that will pop up using Lebanon Utilities' name, saying, hey, we're gonna come hook up solar at your home. And we don't have anything to do with those. And so that'll be a advertisement, some company will come in and indicate that, and that's not Lebanon Utilities.
A question. This really doesn't apply to maybe the resolution, but in the way it's all connected. When we met with Scott August the 4th or 5th, and he went through the report as far as a cost study, and we're now down to a new report here, or what it looks like it's been finalized. Is there anything that's significant or changed from that information that we were given? Like, for example, we talked about the residential rate would be around 4%. I mean, did anything happen in terms of this last 2 weeks and this study that is of significance to any decisions?
Just the EV rate, right? We
Added
had
the
the EV
electric
rate, is that?
vehicle rate.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, it was added.
That's been really the only the most major change that's occurred. Sandra, you'd have to speak to anything else that you saw.
Nothing else. I think there was a couple little rounding issues, but.
Well,
other
the
than-
EV is kind of a rounding thing at this point, isn't it?
Kind of.
Fixed
I-
charge,
it-
fixed charge for industry.
The fixed charge for the EV, we added a customer charge for EV. And then
Fixed charge
if
for the
you,
industrial was there, I
If-
believe. I don't think that's a change.
well, it was a typo. Scott had the wrong number typed in and he fixed that.
Okay.
It doesn't, if you look back, it's consistent with what it was prior plus the increase, but there was a typo in that number. And the other thing we changed, but we talked about it in here, was we changed the demand on the small power, as it didn't have the same effect we thought it was gonna have, so we increased the kilowatts back up. But nothing major since we talked in here 2 weeks ago. Yeah, but that
Voltage, yeah.
part we didn't discuss, so the wording in the ordinance at the time, we didn't.
Not seen that, so that, in theory, Alan, the ordinance
that's
then
good.
is a summary of the executive summary of the Baker Tilly report and capturing those new rates, so.
A lot of moving parts and pieces.
So we have about 15 minutes, although 5 o'clock will be a pretty hard stop for us. One, we have our meeting, and two, the city council is going to come in here and try to figure out some budget issues, I think. Sandra, you did hand out the electric and proposed based upon residential usage. And
Yeah.
some thoughts or ideas related to that, so why don't we?
Are you gonna
review that?
present this during the regular session too?
I mean, I figured we would present this like in the public hearing, when we had a public hearing, but that's up to you. If you want us to show it, we can.
You can show it to me anytime.
So Aaron had pointed out that if you look at the cost of service study on page 20, when Scott just does the overall, you need 12.4%. That's before he does the cost of service. He has a little paragraph under there that shows what that does to a residential bill at 12%. But since we did the cost of service study and the residential only came out to be 4-point-something%, what is that number really? And if you look at page 2, if we base it on the same number of kilowatts, 1,000 kilowatts, it really comes out to a $4 difference in an average bill, which is 3.19%,
Average monthly bill.
average monthly bill. And I went ahead and did a couple different scenarios, because if you go to the very last page and you look at somebody, if they're using 2,000 kilowatts, the percentage does go up to 7.47, but we have a lot less of those customers. So on average, it's gonna go up 4%, but it's gonna hit everybody a little different depending on the usage.
And that's a factor of standardizing
Correct.
the rate, correct? Because
Yes.
now we're not charging less for more usage, and okay.
All right, so at 800 kilowatts per hour usage for a resident, their monthly,
Yep.
$2.92,
$2.92.
2.82%.
2.8260%. All right. And at 1,000, it's 3.19%. And at 6 kilowatt hours, 5.97. So thank you for doing this. I think this is instructive and an important way to explain to the residences how this will impact. Thank you for doing that, and I don't think we can present it too often.
Yeah, if you want me to, at some point, I'll have Jeff just say, here's the effect, and I can walk up and put it on the, I would say I only do the average residential bill, which is 1,000, because I think it's gonna be too many numbers if I keep flipping all the pages, but make it, if that's okay.
Senator, do you want,
1,000 is a typical in the industry.
Sandra, would it be appropriate to go through and have you talk about the change to the residential rate, commercial, municipal, small power, and then the power and light, and then I'll take off with the rest? Or what, just giving a summary of each change, and then you hit that as well?
Yeah, I was just gonna hit this. I can certainly do that, but Jeff, I'm gonna be reading numbers this tiny.
I think it's more of a summary. I'm happy to,
Well, let me put it
Okay,
this way. If it's not presented, what the rate increase is gonna be by class, I will
okay, let's do that
present
then.
it myself.
Are you good with that? Just talk about the percent of each.
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
Well, I think it's important here also, again, we're gonna have to clarify and continue to clarify this rate increase is, you know, this is an outcome of, one, the methods that we chose, but also the fact that 80% of our power is passed through at its purchase power. And now, to make up for those differences, we're gonna see differences based upon usage. Correct?
oh, absolutely. One of the other things.
But when we say on average, a residential increase is gonna be 4%, well, there's a sliding scale for that also, where as a heavier user, it's gonna be more. I will understand that better. I'm not so sure my peers who use the same amount of power, when they look and say, wait a minute, I got 7%, you said 4%. That's my concern and how I think we need to continue to clarify and make it more clarity for our customer base. Is to do that.
Well, when you say an average, the fact that you're a heavier user, or you say, well, that's not mine, that still doesn't take away from the average is this. And if I'm a higher user, I would expect that I'm gonna be above average. Now, whether you wanna spell out all the, you know, what the numbers are, I don't know, but
I will tell you this, probably closer to 600.
That seems
I
pretty
asked-
high to me.
So Scott and them always use 1,000, I'll
Yeah.
throw that out. I looked at Indiana's average and it's 900, so real close to 1,000. I asked Angela if she could go in and see what ours was, but she couldn't find a report today to do that. So our average might be a little less. However, I went with what was on Scott's report,
Yeah.
and then,
I think you have to use a standard,
Yeah.
and that's a reasonable standard.
And it's also a sort of industry standard of 1,000.
It is.
Yes.
We have a large population of people that live in apartments, and they're usually less users than houses. So that's where, a lot of times when we run numbers, we get.
One of the other things to note that, when we talk about the LEAP district, we have a swath of territory in there that has, I would say, no small residential, save for, we are serving, I think our client is Boone Power. They're serving temporarily Lily's LP1 site through a wheeling agreement. It's a very favorable agreement to the utility in that Boone Power paid for us to upsize some of our infrastructure in that area, that once they, and I think that was initially termed at 18 months, was expected. Are we still on that, or has that been?
We still are, and
Yeah, so who knows? Yeah, who knows when that will fall away, but we're, receiving a favorable rate on that, and, there's administrative wheeling charge, and we got a few $100,000 worth of infrastructure at cost to the utility.
yeah, technically, we're serving Boone Power, not LEAP.
Right.
And
Boone
the
Power's
power-
our customer, yeah.
Wabash is not our customer? I was thinking it was Wabash.
It's through Wabash Valley. The
I was gonna say, I thought it
contract, I believe, is through Wabash Valley. But it's on behalf of Boone Power.
I think Boone, if I recall, Boone Power, they may be even a signatory in it, but they negotiated and then passed it off, so. Again, it's not a,
Have they ever
it's a
asked for-
favorable.
Have they asked for more power ever? I mean, it's a set minimum, right? Or is it a set max? I don't know.
Set max, because Phil was supposed to be watching to make sure they don't go over the max, because if they do, I believe there's some kind of an
We could,
additional
Then
fee.
INPA needs to know.
You get a monthly report where it's listed on there as a deduction.
Yeah, apologies, it's been a long time since I looked at that, but I think there's a surcharge if they go above, if I recall. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, they haven't been close.
Okay. All right, we're at 4:52. We have a 7-8 minute break till our normal meeting.
Can I ask a question? I
sure,
mean, it's not on the agenda, but just as a catch-up for me coming on the board and missing what happened, what's the background on this Fordyce piece of property that's on our agenda today to tear down that the utilities owns? I know it was a fire, I go drive by it every day, but what's the background here in terms of?
I'll start, but I'll probably pitch the ball to Ryan, but it's a piece of property where the city wants to get rid of it, and we realized that we could put a lift station there that would take what's called an aerial sewer main
Okay, so
that crosses Prairie Creek out.
It's a future lift station site is what it's all about.
Yeah, it's a future lift
Okay.
station site.
That takes care of my question.
But Ryan probably has a lot more detail than that, but yeah.
It sat there for a couple of
I wasn't
years. It's been
prepared
an
to talk
eyesore.
about it. Oh, yeah.
It hasn't sold, so
Yeah.
it makes some sense for us to be able to utilize that. And we have many, according to Aaron, we have many neighborhood lift stations that, that we can utilize.
you didn't even know about the one right now.
We do need a motion to close.
So moved.
Second?
We are,
All right.
we are closed.
That's where it comes off.